Kiandra is an abandoned gold mining town and a birthplace of Australian skiing. The town is situated in the Snowy Mountains of New South Wales, Australia, in the Snowy Monaro Regional Council inside the Kosciuszko National Park. Its name is a corruption of Aboriginal Gianderra for sharp stones for knives. It was earlier called Gibson's Plains, named after Dr. Gibson, a settler in the district in 1839. For a century, Kiandra was Australia's highest town. Kiandra lies approximately 90 kilometres northwest of Cooma on the Snowy Mountains Highway between Adaminaby and Talbingo. It sits at 1,400 metres above sea level and is situated on a high, treeless ridge on the banks of the Yucumbene River, which is snow-covered during winter and is subject to high winds. After decades of decline, restoration work on the remaining buildings at Kiandra has been ongoing since 2009. Work on the historic Kiandra Courthouse Chalet and Walgal Lodge fishing cottage has been conducted by the National Parks and Wildlife Service and volunteers, enabling occasional amenities and limited accommodation at Kiandra. History: Gold Rush. In November 1859, gold was discovered by mountain cattlemen, the Pollock brothers, and by March 1860, some 10,000 miners and storekeepers had raced to the scene. Initial returns were very good. A 9 kg nugget was discovered in river deposits under what became known as New Chum Hill. Kiandra Post Office opened on the 1st of June 1860, and it is estimated that the area at its peak accommodated around 15,000 people, served by 25 stores, 13 bakers, 16 butchers, 14 pubs, several banks and 4 blacksmiths. Nevertheless, by 1861, the Sydney Morning Herald was reporting a mass exodus, and the easy pickings were exhausted. Significant numbers of Chinese people worked the Kiandra goldfields. Chinese miners built 3 Mile Dam in 1882 to assist with sluicing operations at New Chum Hill. The scenic lake still exists and now supplies Selwyn snowfields with its snow-making water requirements. Wikipedia's Chinese site lists Kiandra as the last mining operations finally ceased around 1905. Official total production recorded was 48,676 kg. In 1890, the second courthouse to be built in the township was constructed. The building included police barracks and was used more for its police rather than court function. It remained Kiandra's police station until 1937, later to become the Kiandra Chalet. A battery stamper and other mining relics recovered locally are situated on the road to Cabramurra below New Chums Hill, close to the NPWS entry booth. This stamper was used to crush rock and quartz in order to free the embedded gold. The Wigan Penbury in Canberra commemorates this chapter in Australia's high country history with a pale golden Pilsner beer in the Czech style. Named Kiandra Gold, skiing Kiandra is often isolated by deep snow which made it inaccessible during winter. In 1861, Norwegian miners introduced recreational skiing to the snowbound mining settlement after manufacturing over 40 pairs of both short skis, known as skates, and the longer snowshoes during the months before the first winter snow. To avoid confusion with a conventional skate, the skates were described as. There were no fence palings or posts in Kiandra. In 1861, ski races were held annually on Township Hill at Kiandra, which led to the founding of the Kiandra Snowshoe Club, reportedly becoming the world's longest continuously running ski club as it evolved into the present-day Kiandra Pioneer Ski Club in Perisher Valley, NSW. Whether the club is the first of its kind has been subject to debate. At one time, the poet Banjo Patterson was a vice president. The club held perhaps the first international ski race carnival in 1908. In 1927, William Hughes, a member of the club, together with 4 members of the Ski Club of Australia, made the first historic ski traverse from Kiandra to the Hotel Kosciuszko. Their eventful journey is retold in Klaus Weiniger's book Kiandra to Kosciuszko, and was commemorated by 150 ski tourists in 1977 in an event organized by the Kosciuszko Huts Association. The Kiandra courthouse closed as a police station in 1937, and was for a time used as a private residence, before becoming the Kiandra Chalet and later the Kiandra Chalet Hotel. The owner of the chalet ran a ski rope tow. The chalet closed in 1973 and the building became a roads depot building. Australia's first T-bar was installed on Township Hill in 1957, but in 1978, Kiandra's ski lift operations relocated permanently to nearby Selwyn snowfields. The T-bar remained in operation at Mount Selwyn until the 2009 ski season, when it was replaced by the Township Triple Chair. The area today, the last resident left Kiandra in 1974, after which the National Parks and Wildlife Service took over the town and completed its demolition of most of its buildings. This decision by the NPWS not to preserve much of the human heritage of the township remains a source of resentment in some quarters in the district. To this day, only 4 buildings from the former township remain intact, together with a collection of ruins and the historic cemetery. The area retains various other relics of Australian pioneer history, including mining equipment, old gravesites and abandoned diggings. The remaining buildings at Kiandra are of high heritage value, and historical walking trails provide information on the former layout and points of interests of the old town. The most substantial remaining building is the former courthouse, which was originally constructed in 1890, and which was partially restored by National Parks in 2010. Stokes Russo and carpenters Sean Walker and Barry Elwood from Fernbys for use as an interpretive centre. The restored courtroom was officially opened on the 5th of May 2010, with some 150 people present for the ceremony. The later additions to the original courthouse at the rear of the building remain in a state of outward disrepair, although National Parks intend to continue the restoration in stages, aiming to preserve the cultural history of the site across its many previous uses. In 2012, public accommodation returned to Kiandra with the opening of the restored Walgal Lodge for bookings. The opening of the 1960s fishing cottage was in part conducted to create and demonstrate a market demand for Kiandra-based accommodation, which, according to the Snowy Times, could prove a market-based argument for restoring the Kiandra courthouse and chalet for accommodation. Easter 2013 saw all 4 of Kiandra's buildings in public use for the first time in decades, with guided tours and exhibitions, including the Matthews Cottage exhibition and the Pattinson's Cottage House Museum. Kiandra in print, photography and archaeology. Historic Kiandra, a guide to the history of the district by D.G. Moye, was published by the Snowy Monaro Historical Society to mark the centenary of the Kiandra Gold Rush in 1959, and remains in print. Australian high country enthusiast Klaus Weiniger has written 2 books on the Kiandra region: Hearts of the High Country, 1982, and Kiandra to Kosciuszko, 1987. The Kiandra Pioneer Ski Club published two histories: Kiandra, Goldfields to Ski Fields in Lapland, Snowshoes in Australia. The poet Barcroft Boak wrote a poem about skiing at Kiandra, entitled The Demon Snowshoes, a legend of Kiandra. Banjo Patterson referenced Kiandra in his poetry, as in a mountain station. Patrick White's first novel, Happy Valley, has Kiandra thinly disguised as the township of Kambala. The 2011 time travel, science fiction adventure novel Falling into History by Peter Fleming is partially set in Kiandra. The township has been subject to various archaeological studies, including a project by the Australian National University Department of Archaeology and Anthropology under the direction of DRS Mike Smith, Ken Heffernan and Annie Clark in the mid-1990s. The Kiandra Historical Society remains a useful resource of record for the history of the town. A number of interesting photographic studies were taken of life at Kiandra, including a series by Charles Carey, and a scene of Chinese miners near the township. Climate statistics were compiled at the Kiandra Chalet site, elevation 1,395 meters, from the year 1866 until 1974. According to the Bureau of Meteorology, the lowest temperature recorded was -17.8 degrees Celsius in July 1965 and again in August 1966. In January 1968, the highest temperature of 32.9 degrees was recorded. For the period 1897 to 1974, the mean temperature range in January was from maximum 20.7 degrees to minimum 6.1 degrees Celsius. In July, the figures were mean maximum 3.9, mean minimum -4.7 degrees. This range means Kiandra is one of the few places in the southern hemisphere to experience a humid continental climate.